In this demo, we'll be looking at backup and recovery of an OpenStack Virtuoso virtualization environment using DPX vPlus. In our demo, we'll be using Virtuoso, which is a commercialized version of OpenStack. And we'll start off here in the Virtuoso environment. As you can see, I have my environment containing some VMs. And if I drill down into the virtual machine instances listed here, you can see those VMs. Now, you might be using other storage services with Virtuoso like object storage, and this might come in handy if you want to set up vPlus backing up to object storage within Virtuoso. Now that we have a lay of the land, let's jump to DPX vPlus. In vPlus, what I'd like to do is back up my OpenStack Virtuoso environment via an agentless backup method. So here is my vPlus dashboard where I'll need to register my Virtuoso environment. And I can do that just by simply going to the virtual environment screen listed here and then selecting virtualization providers. Now, I already have my Virtuoso environment already scanned in, but if I want to create another one, what I can do is click this Create button over here on the right-hand side. We support a number of different virtualization hypervisors, anything from cloud-based services like Amazon or Azure. You can see OpenStack listed here and Virtuoso also listed here, which is the environment that I want to scan in. And at this point, we're just going to specify the URL that is going to allow us to authenticate against the Keystone service for that OpenStack environment. So you can see this is usually of the format :5000/v3, which is exactly what I have here, and then specify some other Virtuoso settings from how I would access that endpoint interface and specify authentication domain information. Now, I already have this information already registered and scanned in. So let's just take a look at the information that I have with my open hypervisor here. And this is where I will go in and edit the settings. You can see that my URL is set and the Virtuoso settings have been set so that I can properly register and inventory that hypervisor. Once I've registered my Virtuoso environment, what I can do is now perform an inventory by jumping back to the virtualization provider screen and selecting the inventory synchronization screen listed here. Once the request has been submitted, I can monitor that through the task console, at which point it's just going to authenticate against my hypervisor and bring back all the virtual instances, that is the VMs that the hypervisor contains. So if I minimize this here, I can just jump into my virtual environments instances tab, and this is where I should see all the virtual machines contained within my Virtuoso instance that I saw within the administration interface for Virtuoso. Once I have my hypervisor registered in inventory, the next thing I want to do before I can run a backup is set up a backup destination. And you can do that within the vPlus interface through the backup destination screen. Here you can see the different types of backup destinations that you can set up, anything from file system to object storage, even storage that is attached and serviced through the Virtuoso/OpenStack environment. If I want to set up another backup destination, I can click on the Create button over here on the right-hand side. These are the different types of backup destinations we can set up from a file system perspective. And then under the object storage destination, I can choose any S3 compatible or Microsoft Azure Blob storage that I want to use as my backup destination listed there. In my case, I already have a backup destination already configured. You can see that it is of type file system synthetic, which means that I can ultimately produce synthetic full images on that file system and run a single base followed by incremental snapshots of my VMs. After configuring the backup destination, let's go ahead and define a backup for one of the virtual environment instances that we had just inventoried. So to do that, we'll go into the virtual environment screen listed here, and then we're already brought under instances. And you can see here that I can do ad hoc backups of VMs that I have already assigned backup policies to. So in this specific case, this company A Cirrus Pro 1 VM that I have configured in my Virtuoso environment, if I mouse over on the right-hand side here, I can select to run an incremental or a full backup. In this case, I'll go ahead and run an incremental backup ad hoc. But in order to do this, I would need to assign this to a backup policy. Or in this case, I have a backup policy already created called backup underscore policy one. Now to create a backup policy, I would just go into my dashboard over on the left-hand side, select backup policies here. You can see the backup policy that I've already configured, but a backup policy is going to define what you're backing up, where you're going to back it up to, and any schedules that you would like to add to that backup. So if I click on create here, this is where I would give my policy a name. So we can call it test as my example. We can define options and priority within that policy. And then we can choose which objects we would like to back up as part of that policy. So in this case, I can go into the list of virtual environments that I have here, select the VM that I want to be assigned to that backup policy, or I can choose to have a policy auto assigned based off of tags or regular expression inclusion rules. And then just simply define the backup process that I would like to use with that policy if I want to quiesce or freeze before the snapshot, and then the how I would like to take those snapshots depending on the hypervisor. From here, this is where I can define retention on my policy as well as apply schedules to that policy where I can create and schedule. In this case, I have two schedules already created that I can assign to my policy. And that is how you define and run a backup for your Virtuoso environment. Let's take a look at my ad hoc job run. What's going to happen is when the backup is performed, and in this case, the backup has completed successfully, there's going to be multiple stages to your backup, meaning that the first stage is going to export that data to your vPlus node, and then the second stage is going to store that data to the backup destination. And if there's any snapshot cleanups that need to be performed, this is where it's also going to happen within your job policy. So now let's take a look at the restore. To restore a VM, I'll just need to go back to the dashboard under the virtual environment instances. And since I only have one backup here, this is the only VM that I'm able to restore, but I can kick off a restore job by just simply clicking or hovering over the actions menu on the right hand side and clicking the restore button listed here. And in this case, I have two options for restore: restoring back to the vPlus node where I can just simply mount the virtual machine disk, or restoring the entire VM back to the hypervisor manager, in this case my Virtuoso environment. So here is where I can select the backup location, the snapshots that I have listed within my backup location, and then the hypervisor manager destination that I'm going to want to recreate that machine on. And this is where I can also rename projects, rename the virtual machine instance name. So if I want to just call this VM dash restored, I can go ahead and do that, and then click on the next button in order to define the additional parameters of my restore from the storage, the networking, and other advanced options. Here I'm going to leave everything by default, and if I wanted to specify additional networking information, I can choose to do so as well. And if I wanted to delete the virtual environment, if it already exists, I can do that as well. Clicking on the Summary tab, I will get the parameters that I've defined within my restore job. So all that is left for me to do is click on the restore button to enable my restore for the virtual machine. And in this case, you can see that after running some restores, I've had some restore images already created. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at www.catalogicsoftware.com. You can also visit our My Support page at mysupport.catalogicsoftware.com, which will have a treasure trove of information for you to reference should you wish to learn more about vPlus. Thank you and have a great day.